Hello there, Michael. I just have two things to ask you. One is that whenever you want to go on, we can. So just let us know how many minutes before we go on.
Ma buongiorno.
Pope Francis
Siete
says, good morning.
Tanti.
There's so many of you who've come. It seems like a canonization, says the Holy Father. This is a group from the Diocese of Benevento, Italy. The Holy Father saying, thank you for coming.
A tutti. Grazie di questa cortesia.
Thanks for this courtesy.
Che indica certamente la finezza dell'anima. Grazie.
It shows the beauty of your souls.
Nel nome del Padre e del Figlio e dello
In the name of the
Spirito
Father,
Santo.
and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
La pace sia con voi.
Peace be with you.
Cari fratelli e sorelle,
Dear brothers and sisters,
sono lieto di
I'm
accogliervi
happy to welcome you
e di rivolgere a ciascuno di voi
and
il mio cordiale benvenuto.
to give each of you my cordial
Voi siete
welcome.
venuti a Roma
You've come
con il
to
vostro
Rome
pastore,
with your
Monsignore
shepherd,
Felice a
Monsignor
Crocca,
Felice Acroca,
per ricambiare
to
la
exchange
visita
the
che
visit
ho avuto
that
la
I
gioia
had the
di
joy
compiere a Pietrelcina
of making to
il
Pietrelcina
17 marzo
on
dell'anno
the 17th
scorso,
of March of last year,
nel centenario
on the
dell'apparizione
100th anniversary of the apparition of the
di
stigmata
San Pio
of St. Pio
e nel 50°
and the
anniversario
50th
della sua
anniversary
morte.
of his death.
Desidero
I
rinnovare a
wish to
tutti
renew to all
il
of
mio
you
vivo ringraziamento per la calorosa
thank you
accoglienza
for the
che mi
warm
avete
welcome
riservato in quella
that you gave me
circostanza. Non
in that
dimentico
circumstance.
mai quella giornata,
I'll never forget that day,
come pure non dimentico
as I'll never
tanti
forget
ammalati che ho
the so many
salutato.
sick people that I greeted.
È rimasto nel mio cuore quella vista.
It stayed in my heart, that visit did.
Il ricordo di quell'evento carico di significato ecclesiale e
May
spirituale
the memory of that
ravvivi in
event,
ciascuno
charged
la
with
volontà di
ecclesial and
approfondire la
spiritual
vita di
significance,
fede
revive in each of you
nel solco
the will
degli
to deepen your
insegnamenti
life
del
of faith
vostro illustre
in the footsteps of the
e
teachings of your
santo Padre
illustrious and holy compatriot, Padre
Egli
Pio.
si distinse
He distinguished
per
himself
ferma fede
for
in
his
Dio,
strong faith in God,
ferma
his
speranza
firm hope
nelle realtà
in the celestial
celesti,
reality,
generosa
his generous
dedizione alla gente,
dedication to the people,
fedeltà alla Chiesa,
his
che ha
faithfulness to
sempre
the church,
amato
which he
con tutti i
always
suoi
loved
problemi
with all of its
e le
problems
sue avversità.
and adversities.
E mi fermo un po' in questo.
And I
Lui
stop
ha
here.
amato la Chiesa
He loved the church
con tanti problemi,
with so
che ha
many
la Chiesa,
problems that the
con
church
tante
had,
avversità,
with so many
con
adversities,
tanti peccatori.
so many
La
sinners.
Chiesa è santa, è la sposa di Cristo.
The church is
Ma
holy.
noi, i
It's
figli
the
della Chiesa, siamo tutti
spouse of
peccatori.
Christ, but we
Alcuni
as
grossi,
children of God are
Ma lui
sinners,
ha amato
some
la
big
Chiesa
sinners.
com'era,
But God,
non l'ha distrutta con la
but Padre
lingua,
Pio loved the church as it was.
come è di moda farlo adesso.
He didn't
No?
destroy it as
No, ama.
it's in
Quello che ama
style
la
to do
Chiesa
now.
sa perdonare,
He loved it.
perché sa che lui stesso è peccatore e ha
He
bisogno
loved the
del
church
perdono
because he
di
knew
Dio.
that
Sa
he
sistemare le
was
cose,
a
sì,
sinner and he needed
perché il
the
Signore
pardon of
vuole
God.
che sistemare bene le cose, ma sempre col perdono. Ma non si può
We're going to
vivere
take care of things, but always
tutta una
with
vita
forgiveness.
accusando,
You can't just pass your
la
life
Chiesa.
accusing,
L'ufficio di
accusing.
accusatore
The office of the accuser.
di chi è?
Whose is that?
Chi è? Quello che la Bibbia
Who
chiama il
is
grande
the one that the
accusatore, chi
Bible
è?
calls the grand accuser?
Non
Who is that?
capisco.
I don't understand.
Non sento bene.
I don't hear you.
Il diavolo.
It's the devil.
E coloro che si passano la vita
Those who spend their lives accusing.
Sono, non dirò figli, no,
I
perché
won't
il diavolo
say
non ne ha.
children, because the devil doesn't have them.
Cugini,
But
parenti
friends,
del
cousins,
diavolo, no?
relatives
No,
of the devil.
Questo non va.
No, this is not good.
Si devono segnalare i difetti per corriggere.
They've got to point out defects to correct
Al
them.
momento che si segnalano i
But
difetti,
in the moment
si
that you
denunciano i
signal
difetti,
a defect,
si ama la
you
Chiesa.
denounce a defect, you love
Senza
the
amore,
church. Without
quello del
love,
diavolo.
it's of the
Ambedue le
devil.
cose aveva il Santo Padre Pio.
And this is one of the things that had Saint Padre Pio. He loved the church with all of its problems, with all of its adversities, with the sins of its children. Don't forget this. I encourage you to understand and to welcome ever more the love of God, source and motive of our true joy. We're called to give our love that changes lives, especially for the weakest and most in need. Every one of us, spreading this divine charity, contributes and builds a world that is more just and full of solidarity. On the example of Padre Pio, please don't tire of entrusting yourselves to Christ and announcing His kindness and His mercy with the testimony of your lives. It's this that the men and women also of our time expect from the disciples of the Lord. It's testimony. Saint Francis, your bishop knows well. What did he say to his disciples? He said, go out and give testimony. The words aren't necessary. Sometimes you got to speak. But start with testimony. Live as Christians, giving witness, giving testimony that love is more beautiful than hate, that friendship is better than being enemies, that fraternity amongst all of us, brotherhood, is better than war. Thanks again for this visit. From my heart, I impart to you all my blessing that I extend to your families, to your communities, and to the entire Archdiocese of Benevento. Thanks so much. So there are an estimated 2,500 individuals on pilgrimage. The Holy Father ending with a prayer here.
Sit nomen Domini benedictum. Aiutorium nostrum in nomine Domini. Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater, Filius et Spiritus Sanctus. E per favore non dimenticatevi di pregare per me. Grazie.
Please don't forget to pray for me. Thank you. So this was a bit of a visit by surprise this morning. Came in just before the general audience, the Holy Father coming into the Basilica of St. Peter's, where you see there are 2,500 people who came from the Archdiocese of Benevento in the south of Italy, where just last year on March the 17th, the Pope visited to follow in the footsteps of Saint Padre Pio, going to Pietrelcina and also to San Giovanni Rotondo, where the saint lived for most of his life and is buried. Holy Father giving a quick speech there. He actually arrived, it sounded like he was almost running, breathing hard when he came in. I'm here with Matthew Bunson in the studios of EWTN's Vatican Bureau.
Good morning.
Hello, Matthew. The Holy Father really going straight to the point today. What do you think was on his mind there as he spoke of the great accuser and the work of the devil today?
Well, it's a recurring theme of this pontificate. More than almost any of the modern popes, Pope Francis has focused very heavily on the devil. In his exhortation, Gaudete et Exultate, he made the point that we cannot think of the devil as simply an idea or some sort of an image. In fact, he says that the devil exists, and he has gone back to the theme of the devil as the great accuser on a number of occasions in speeches, especially in the wake of the clergy sexual abuse crisis, but also in his efforts to try to get the Christian life to be one of charity, of giving that witness that he just talked about, but also of holding our tongue when we need to.
This week is particularly poignant, given that the Holy Father has been in meetings for the last 2 days, and for the rest of today after this general audience, he'll still be in these meetings with his group of cardinal advisors, known as the C9 for the 9 members that were once members.
Although they're now down, I think, to C6.
So he's got something very clear on his mind here, and going into this abuse summit that he's convoked all of the presidents of bishops' conferences throughout the world for. He's got about 190 people with some additions in addition to those bishops' conference presidents. And
more media than actual attendees. It's worth pointing out about 300 media from around the world have gathered here.
In addition to the resident, right? In addition to the resident media. So there's a lot of attention here. Matthew, you have come for this, and you've also come to do some work on your Doctors of the Church series. Can you tell us a little bit about your schedule this week?
Yes, well, this is going to be one of those packed weeks. For anyone who's covering a summit like this at the Vatican, you always know that you have the scheduled events, the press briefings that are always important if you're covering this at the Sala Stampa or the Vatican press office. We started the week with a pretty significant press conference of the main organizers, including the American Cardinal Blaise Cupich, laying out the program, and I know you've been reporting on that, Alan. And then this week I'll be doing writing on the events here that are transpiring at this summit, or will be starting tomorrow. And then I'll also be doing, as you noted, some work on the ongoing series that I'm doing for the network on the Doctors of the Church. In particular, I'm delighted to say that I'll be working specifically here on the upcoming episodes on St. Robert Bellarmine and also St. Augustine. And Augustine, I think, is for this Pope especially relevant and especially poignant, given that this is the Pope of Mercy. And Augustine himself, whose life was one of transformation, of conversion, of that metanoia, is, I think, a great role model for the modern life, in the sense that we have so many temptations to overcome today, but conversion always has to be at the heart of what we're trying to live and what we're encouraging other people to live.
And this is a constant message during this pontificate that God's mercy is infinite.
Yes.
You imagine a situation, not to get into too many details here, but the issue of St. Augustine's life. If he had not been given a second chance, we wouldn't have the St. Augustine that we have today. We wouldn't have a saint.
That's right. The famous quote from him, "Late have I loved you." The idea of discovering sometime in our lives what we truly love and what we're truly called to love. And that, I think, is another one of those recurring themes on the part of Pope Francis, that we have to be given that second chance. In fact, he goes beyond that. He has written on a number of occasions that God is willing to pick you up no matter how many times you fall. And he said the catch, the trap there, though, is that we grow tired of asking him when we do. And that's one of the challenges for all of us as sinners. And I noted in his comments to the faithful from Benevento that he talks about that the church is filled with challenges and crises, but then he added, as he always does, the church is also filled with sinners. Yeah,
and that's one of the first things he said when he addressed media after becoming Pope was, I'm a sinner.
I'm a sinner. And asking us, as he also does, to pray for him.
Yeah, that's right. Which is how he concluded his little meetup with these pilgrims in St. Peter's Basilica. He asked them to pray for him, as he often does, whether it's a personal, private meeting or a large meeting like this. I was able to be in the Basilica this morning to greet some of these pilgrims and ask them what they were doing in town. And they were really excited to be there. You see they have their handkerchiefs around their necks. This is a common thing here in Europe, especially Spanish and French and Italian pilgrims wear those pilgrim scarves.
And no event takes place now without everyone holding their phones.
And there it is. You need a memory.
Papal selfies being what they are, although he takes so many with so many people, I think they're technically papal ussies. But people preserving these memories for themselves, for their loved ones. And I'm always struck by the fact that at a lot of these Vatican events, you even see cardinals who come from different parts of the world, bishops and archbishops, holding their phones as well, trying to remember and record these moments.
Well, the Pope hasn't said anything against selfies in these sorts of moments. He did once during his general audience say that it shouldn't be during the liturgy. You shouldn't be at the consecration taking photos at Mass. But yeah, obviously this is a very special moment for all of these people. I suppose some or many of whom would have seen the Pope down in Benevento last year.
Well, the Archdiocese itself, if I'm remembering correctly, is in one of the most beautiful parts of Italy, in Campania. And the Archdiocese stretches all the way back historically to what they claim anyway is the very first century. And whenever I see an event like this, general audiences, and I know we'll be talking more about the general audience soon, you're looking at continuity. You're looking at those who have come to see the Holy Father as they have for centuries. And that's one of those wonderful things about these types of events in St. Peter's Basilica and St. Peter's Square, of the faithful coming from literally all over the world.
And we'll see that on display when the Pope enters the Paul VI audience hall for his general audience, which is going to be starting a little bit late. It's usually underway by 9:30. We're 2 minutes to 9:30, and the Pope shows no signs of leaving. I don't even see an exit among the crowd there, Matthew.
I do not either. But when dealing with the faithful like this, Pope Francis, you can tell. You've covered a lot of general audiences. I've been to a few in my time. He loves spending time with the faithful. And one of the things that people also look forward to is when he climbs onto the Pope-mobile at the end of it. Today, of course, I think he'll be in the aula of Paul VI. Mm-hmm. He'll be walking. But he takes that time, and you can see the amount of effort that he puts into greeting as many of the pilgrims as possible, and to sharing those moments.
And he'll often exchange a couple of words with people. They like to show him photos of people apparently who weren't able to make it, or they're asking prayers for. He blesses rosaries. He blesses children. Not a lot of small children, it looks like, in this crowd, but we'll see them when he makes it into the Paul VI hall. You see a white rose coming up on the path there. There's a young girl that's got one in hand. The Holy Father has a particular devotion to Saint Therese of Lisieux. So perhaps he's been praying for something, Matthew.
It could be a
see
sign.
This often,
yes,
yeah.
Exactly. And I think that one of the customs is, at least my late mother used to tell me that if you ask for something and you get a white rose, it's yes. If you get a red rose, it's no.
Huh.
I don't know how valid that is, but it's one of those lovely traditions that my mom was aware of as a convert.
So for your mother, for her birthday or special occasions, would you give her roses?
Actually, she liked Hawaiian flowers, so I avoided the problem entirely, yes. Or if you're not sure, pink.
There you go. There you go. Today you can get any other color you want to. Yellow, purple.
Pilgrims from Texas, I'm sure, would want yellow.
There you go.
Going back to Francis's comments to the faithful, he went off the cuff, as he frequently does. Observers always say that if you're watching Francis, keep a keen eye, a very close eye on his script, because if it drops and he keeps talking, you know that he's speaking from the heart. And the part that he spoke from the heart was about St. Francis, which seems additionally appropriate given the focus that he had on Padre Pio, the whole Franciscan legacy, but also that giving witness, quoting that traditional adage that is attributed but not necessarily proven to be from St. Francis about use words only when you have to.
He's using words right now, it looks like. The Holy Father was so down in Benevento, where these pilgrims are from. a year ago on March the 17th, marking the 100th anniversary of when Padre Pio received the permanent stigmata on his hands. And I've got the reporting that we did through the Catholic News Agency. Our Vatican Rome correspondent, Hannah Brockhouse, wrote about the event. The Holy Father was on a 2-day visit down to the regions of Campania and also Puglia to go to the 2 major places that Saint Padre Pio lived, which were Pietrelcina, where he was born and raised, and then San Giovanni Rotondo, where he lived much of his life as a friar and eventually died, and he's buried there. So I'll just read a little bit of the message from the Holy Father on that day so we can sort of relive those moments. He said that here in Pietrelcina, Padre Pio began to experience the motherhood of the Church, of which he was always a devoted son. He loved the Church. He loved the Church with all its problems, with all its troubles, with all our sins, because we're all sinners. We're all ashamed. But the Spirit of God has called us into this Church that is holy. And he loved the Holy Church and sinful children, all of them. That was St. Pio. We heard that message repeated today, didn't we, Matthew?
Today. Yes, we did.
He said basically the same thing to begin with, and then he went off the cuff a little there too to speak about today there's so many problems and so many adversities, and we need to stick with the Church, we need to support the Church, and we need to renew it.
And I think that's one of the underlying themes in this summit, this sex abuse summit that will be kicking off tomorrow. It's, as you noted, Alan, he's spending the last few days, including today, with his Council of Cardinals, his advisors, who are trying to complete a reform process, an institutional reform process for the Roman Curia. But Pope Francis is also very concerned about the spiritual ongoing reform and renewal of the Church. And his reliance on the Council of Cardinals for this institutional reform is also going to be part of his reliance on the bishops who are coming from around the world to deal effectively with what I think we can safely say is the greatest crisis facing the Church today, and that is the universal global issues surrounding clergy sexual abuse. And I think Pope Francis, at the same time, is trying to dampen or deflate, to use the word that he did, the very high expectations that people have coming into this. So I think he's trying to be a realist in what can be accomplished in the 3-day summit.
And so he's divided it up into 3 days dedicated to 3 themes. There's responsibility, accountability, and transparency. On each of those 3 days, it's going to be a style that's not unlike that of a synod. It's going to be taking place in the new synod hall. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the synod, it's a 2 or 3 week series of meetings that take place inside the Vatican, where the Pope invites synod fathers, bishops from the world, also experts and their auditors who can add to the information and experience the discussion as well.
Usually on a very specific topic.
Exactly. And it could be a specific region of the world, the Church in Asia, in the Americas, in the Middle East, or it could be on a theme like the Eucharist, or this last time dedicated to the discernment of vocations for young people.
For young people. Coming up in October will be a special synod, one of those regional ones that you just mentioned, in this case on the Amazon. Now, when we talk about the Amazon, we're actually talking about a massive part of South America, with a host of challenges, both practical and pastoral, as well as spiritual for the Church. And Pope Francis is trying to deal with something that I think he knows a lot about, that he's been hearing about for a long time, especially in his role prior to his election as Pope, when he was still Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, but also a key figure among the Latin American bishops, what's called CELAM, the Latin American Bishops' Conference, that looks at the Amazon itself as one of those massive pastoral challenges for the Church, stretching across multiple countries, thousands, millions of square miles, with far-flung communities that need care.
That's right. And it's a big issue, of course, for the bishops of Latin America, and something that people outside of that region really probably don't know a whole lot about. So this will really put it on the map. So the way that those synods are divided up is basically They take a look at a working document, something that provides them with sort of a skeleton, a framework for the discussion. They have questions and answers, just a little bit of discussion after a series of interventi, they call them, little addresses from the bishops on the theme. And then they break into small discussion groups that are divided up by languages. And they come up with modi, which are these sort of proposals for how to make changes to the original proposed working document. They come up with a final document. Now, if we look,
the small language groups are also, they have that great term, the circoli
minores.
Yes, the little circles.
Yeah. And so they do use, they intersperse some Latin in there. Not as much Latin as has been used in the past as being used now. But
well, it wasn't that long ago that all the interventions were delivered in Latin.
Yeah, that would have made it difficult, a little bit more difficult for us today to follow.
Yes.
So the 3 days of the summit will be divided up into these sort of the larger group discussions where they have keynotes. They'll have 3 people speaking each a day on each of those 3 themes: responsibility, accountability, and transparency. And then they will have questions and answers. And then they'll break into these 11 different small circoli minores, these language group discussions, and I believe there'll be about 15 people in each group. It's 190 people total, of whom the great majority are bishops. But then who else is involved, Matthew?
Well, you're going to have a number of experts. You have, it has been noted, a relatively small number of women are actually going to be taking part in this. You also have members of the Eastern churches, who have, I think, an important voice that needs to be heard at a gathering like this. But the key, I think, here is going to be the experts that they're bringing. I note especially the organizing committee includes Father Hans Zollner, someone that is very familiar to EWTN listeners and viewers because he has been someone who has a key role on the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors, who also heads an important institute at the Gregorian University on protecting children, who is a recognized, genuine expert in this topic. And he is one of those voices, I think, who's going to be very influential in the outcome of this, but also in sort of guiding many of the discussions.
And he was there for the initial press conference to kick off the week, along with Archbishop Scicluna, Charles Scicluna from Malta, who is an adjunct secretary at the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, a longtime figure within the congregation, and a point man for the Pope in investigating particularly difficult cases of sexual abuse, like the one in Chile, and its cover-up, really. In Chile with the bishops, he had a real difficult job last year, and obviously the Pope turns to him for answers, for investigations when he needs them.
Yes, he headed up what was called the Apostolic Visitation to Chile and turned in, I think, a report that was almost 2,000 pages in length to the Holy Father with a very sober, I would imagine, horrifying assessment of everything that happened in Chile. The result, for those who wonder, do investigations like this actually lead to anything, was the summoning to Rome of all of the bishops of Chile and the subsequent submission or handing in of all of the Chilean bishops' resignations. The Holy Father has thus far only accepted a few of them, but it was a pretty significant moment, I think, certainly in the life of the Church in Chile, but also what has been seen, I think, is something of a turning point in a lot of ways in this global abuse crisis, because Pope Francis did get himself in a little bit of trouble during a visit to Chile and Peru. And subsequently made a very public apology and a clarification of his own position. I think the phrase that he used was that he had errors of perception and judgment.
The information that he had wasn't the same information that eventually Monsignor Scicluna came up with, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's the value of a visitation like this. Now, people are very familiar, the faithful are quite familiar in the United States with the calls for a similar visitation to be made for the United States. That so far has not happened. There was some hope that that might actually take place regarding the scandal surrounding former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. The Holy See, however, chose to handle that particular case in a more traditional fashion with an investigation. And of course, here we are, just a few days removed from the final decision, the final decree on the part of the Holy Father to laicize, or to use a colloquial, defrock Cardinal McCarrick, which was, I think, a very significant gesture, a symbol, and action on the part of the Holy See leading into this summit.
It really, people were counting down to it, and I think had that not come ahead of time, it would have been one of the main focuses of the media attention to this summit that will start tomorrow.
And here we're looking at I believe it's the sculpture by Pericles Fezzini called the Resurrezione, the Resurrection, which is anyone who goes into the aula, or the Paul VI Hall in the Synod Hall, recognizes this immediately. It is, I think, an incredibly striking bronze sculpture that dominates the eye in what is already a fairly stark and striking building that is used for these general audiences when the weather outside is inclement, or you have a smaller group that's coming in. It's fun to note that the Italian architect Pier Luigi Nervi completed the Paul VI Hall in 1971. So this is, it's given its name, of course, by, I don't know if they've officially changed it to the Pope St. Paul VI Hall.
There's no saint in there, but there was no blessed in there either when he was beatified, so we're still waiting for that.
So the architecture is known as, it's a reinforced concrete. It's very stark. It is certainly consistent with the architecture of the late 1960s, early 1970s. Nervi was one of the most probably famous proponents of that sort of reinforced concrete architecture that was very popular during that area, not just in Italy, but in different parts of the world. In fact, he designed buildings in Milan, I think in New York, even Australia.
And I believe this was his last work, and definitely the last work of his company. He had a full-on company that he started after having developed these techniques that were very unique to him. He had patents on all the techniques for the structures, of using this reinforced concrete, putting rebar on the inside, and he came up with the methods during World War II when they didn't have very much to work with in terms of resources.
Which is one of the reasons why this is often called the Nervi Hall.
That's right, the Sala Nervi. So you see a lot of young people there in the audience. Looks like we're looking at a choir group right now. All of these groups are announced in advance of the Pope's arrival, and they get a chance to yell and scream at their own names. And then another chance to do it when the Pope arrives, and then when the Pope greets them in their language, we'll hear another yell and a scream from each of these groups. It's a real powerful expression and experience of the universality of the Church. It's this weekly general audience in the Paul VI Hall. If you're just joining us, my name is Alan Holdren, the EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief, and I'm here with Matthew Bunson, who's a senior contributor for EWTN and really a jack of all trades. He's here with me for the commentary, but he's going to be doing so many things this week.
Covering, of course, the Sex Abuse Summit, but also just having the privilege of joining you for covering events like this, Alan. And I note, too, the wedding couples, the recently married couples who are able to have their weddings blessed, their new marriages blessed by the Holy Father. So the brides always show up in their wedding gowns, or a wedding gown, and their husbands in tuxes or appropriate attire as well.
That's called the Sposi Novelli, the newlyweds, and you can sign up for that. You can send in a sort of a request to be included within those couples if you're recently married, and there's no cost. There's the cost of coming to Rome, obviously, but for anyone who goes to the general audience, the tickets are at no cost. And if you do that well in advance, you will receive a ticket, and if you're a newlywed, you will receive those special tickets to be right in the very front and to actually greet the Holy Father in person and to receive his blessing. One of the most beautiful things that you see there, I'm sure you've seen this too, Matthew, is the blessing also of the woman's womb, of the child in the womb.
Yes.
And we see that quite often with the Holy Father and these newlywed couples who you know, it's within, I believe, 3 months, but I think they're pretty lenient, 6 months, 9 months, a year. And then you also see a lot of disabled people, people in wheelchairs that are right there in the very front. That's something that the Holy Father really makes a point of greeting each of those people and those who are accompanying them in person and spending time with them. And we see that on all of his international trips, and really anywhere he goes, there is a privileged place for the disabled and the sick, and the general audience every week is no different.
I remember his very first, the installation Mass in March of 2013, when he stopped the Pope Mobile, climbed down from it, and gave a very special blessing to a young man who was grievously ill. And that was a tone setter for this pontificate.
And really the image of the World Youth Day in Panama that took place just last month was this beautiful photo taken by a local photographer in Panama of a boy being hoisted up by his friends in his wheelchair in order to greet the Holy Father coming past in the Pope Mobile. So you see it from behind, and you see this boy being held up in the wheelchair, and the Holy Father looking and waving to him. Just beautiful. So yeah, the Holy Father has arrived in the Paul VI Hall, and this is the weekly general audience just about to get underway. The Holy Father has been focusing on the theme of the Our Father prayer since before Christmas in a series of catecheses that he'll be giving for the foreseeable future, only interrupted really by if he has an apostolic trip outside of Italy, he tends to come back and speak about that trip in the next general audience. He did so for World Youth Day in Panama, and then just right after, literally a week after, he took off for Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, and he came back and spoke about that trip as well. But otherwise, it's been focused on the Our Father prayer and how we can take the teaching of Christ himself as we direct our prayers to the Father. So the Holy Father is saying that we should make the first disciples' prayer our own, saying, Lord, teach us to pray. And he's repeated that several times. Just last week, he said that the Our Father, there's no I in the Our Father. It's us directing ourselves to the Father with you or thy, and then give us this day our daily bread. The second person plural, the first person plural, excuse me, and saying us and we. And it's not about give me my daily bread, it's give us our daily bread.
Well, he put that there is no room for individualism in the dialogue with God. There is no display of our own problems as if we were the only ones suffering in the world. There is no prayer raised to God that is not the prayer of a community of brothers and sisters. We are a community, we are brothers and sisters, we are a people who pray. Once a prison chaplain asked me a question. He said, tell me, Father, what is the opposite of I? And naively I said, you. This is the start of a war. He said, the opposite of I is us.
And he said that leads to peace. Here we'll have an initial blessing from the Holy Father. Start with the sign of the cross.
Il Santo Padre dà ora inizio all'udienza generale che introdurrà con il segno della croce e il saluto liturgico. Prepariamoci ad accogliere la sua parola e ricevere la sua benedizione.
Nel nome del Padre, del Figlio e dello Spirito Santo. La pace sia con voi.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, peace be with you. And here we'll now hear a Bible reading that will be translated into the different languages and delivered by different officials of the Vatican Secretary of State from the book of the prophet Isaiah.
Sion ha detto, il Signore mi ha abbandonato, il Signore mi ha dimenticato. Si dimentica forse una donna del suo bambino così da non commuoversi per il figlio delle sue viscere? Anche se costoro si dimenticassero, io invece non ti dimenticherò mai. Ecco, sulle palme delle mie mani ti ho disegnato. Parola di Dio.
So first given in Italian, and then we'll hear it in French, and then English and other languages.
livre d'Isaïe. Jérusalem disait, « Le Seigneur m'a abandonné, mon Seigneur m'a oublié. » Une femme peut-elle oublier son nourrisson, ne plus avoir de tendresse pour le fils de ses entrailles? Même si elle l'oubliait, moi je ne t'oublierai pas, car je t'ai gravé sur les paumes de mes mains, j'ai toujours tes remparts devant les yeux. Parole du Seigneur.
A reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. But Zion said, "The Lord has forsaken me, my Lord has forgotten me." Can a woman forget her sucking child, that she should have no compassion on the son of her womb? Even these may forget, yet I will not forget you. Behold, I have graven you on the palms of my hands. The word of the Lord.
Aus dem Buch des Propheten Jesaja. Doch Sion sagt, der Herr hat mich verlassen, Gott hat mich vergessen. Kann denn eine Frau ihr Kindlein vergessen, ohne Erbarmen sein gegenüber ihrem leiblichen Sohn? Und selbst wenn sie ihn vergisst, ich vergesse dich nicht. Sieh her, ich habe dich eingezeichnet in meine Hände. Wort des lebendigen Gottes.
Lectura del profeta Isaías. Sión decía, me ha abandonado el Señor, mi dueño me ha olvidado. ¿Es que puede una madre olvidarse de su criatura, no conmoverse por el hijo de sus entrañas? Pues aunque ella se olvide, yo no te olvidaré. Mira, te llevo tatuada en mis palmas. Palabra de Dios.
Leitura do livro do profeta Isaías. Sião dizia, o Senhor abandonou-me, o meu dono esqueceu-se de mim. Acaso pode uma mulher esquecer-se do seu bebê, não ter carinho pelo fruto das suas entranhas? Ainda que ela se esquecesse dele, eu nunca te esqueceria. Eis que eu gravei a tua imagem na palma das minhas mãos. Palavra do Senhor.
قراءة من سفر النبي أشعياء. قالت صهيون: تركني الرب ونسيني سيدي. أتنسى المرأة رضيعها فلا ترحم ابن بطنها؟ حتى لو نسيت النساء فأنا لا أنساك. ها أنا ذا على كفي نقشتك، وأسوارك أمام عيني في كل حين. كلام الرب.
Z księgi proroka Izajasza. Mówił Syjon: Pan mnie opuścił, Pan o mnie zapomniał. Czyż może niewiasta zapomnieć o swym niemowlęciu, ta, która kocha syna swego łona? A nawet gdyby ona zapomniała, ja nie zapomnę o Tobie. Oto wyryłem Cię na obu dłoniach. Oto Słowo Boże.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, buongiorno.
Dear brothers and sisters, good morning. The audience of today has taken place in two places. First, I had a meeting with the faithful of Benevento who were in St. Peter's Basilica, and now with you. And this is due to the sensitivity of the prefecture of the pontifical household that didn't want you to be cold, so thank you for that. The alternative to the indoor audience is an outdoor audience. So we continue the catechesis on the Our Father. The first step of every Christian prayer is the entry into a mystery, that of the paternity of God. You can't pray like parrots. Either you go into the mystery with the knowledge that God is your Father, or just don't pray. If you pray, you don't really pray. I want to pray, God is my Father, and that's how the mystery starts. To understand in which measure God is our Father, we think to the figures of our parents, but we must always in some measure refine them, purify them. The Catechism of the Catholic Church also says this. The purification of the heart concerns the paternal and maternal images, which are configured in our personal and cultural history, and that influence our relationship with God. None of us has had perfect parents. None of us. As us, in our own merit, will never be perfect pastors or parents. We all have defects, all of us. Our relationships of love, we live them always under the sign of our limits and also our selfishness. Therefore, they're often polluted by desires of possession or manipulation of the other. For this, sometimes the declarations of love are transformed into sentiments of anger and hostility. But look, these two loved each other so much last week. Today, they hate each other. We hear this every day. It's for this reason. We all have bitter roots within us that aren't good. And from them can come evil. This is why when we speak of God as a Father, when we think of the image of our parents, especially if they've loved us, at the same time we must go beyond. Because the love of God is that of the Father who is in heaven, according to the expression that Jesus invites us to use. It's the total love that we in this life taste only in an imperfect way. Men and women are eternally beggars of love. We're beggars of love. We need love. They seek a place to be finally loved, but they don't find it. How many friendships, how many deluded loves, disappointed loves there are in our world. The Greek god of love in mythology is the one who's most tragic. Don't understand if it's an angelic being or a demon. Mythology says that he's the child of Poros and Penia, that is, of cunning and craftiness and of poverty, destined to carry within himself a little of the physical aspects of these parents. From here we can think to the ambivalent nature of human love, capable of flowering, of blooming, and of living in an arrogant way from 1 hour of the day. And then very quickly after, it can die. There's an expression from the prophet Hosea that frames in a good way the weakness of our love. Your loyalty is like morning mist, like the dew that disappears early. How many times we have loved in this intermittent and weak way. We've all got this experience. We've all had this experience. Wishing to love, we've come into conflict with our limits, with the poverty of our strength, incapable of maintaining a promise that in days of grace appeared easy to realize. The Apostle Peter wasn't faithful to the love of Jesus. Always with this weakness makes us fall. We are beggars that on the path risk not ever completely finding that treasure that we search for from the beginning of our lives, love. But another love exists, that of our Father who's in heaven. No one should doubt being someone who can receive this love. He loves us. He loves me. If our father or our mother haven't loved us, there's a God in heaven who loves us like no one on this earth has ever done or could ever do. The love of God is always constant. The prophet Isaiah says,
si dimentica forse una donna del suo bambino, così da non commuoversi per il figlio delle sue viscere, anche se costoro si dimenticassero, io invece non ti dimenticherò mai. Ecco, sulle palme delle mie mani ti ho disegnato.
Can a mother forget her infant? Be without tenderness for the child of her womb? Even should she forget, I will never forget you. See, upon the palms of my hands I've engraved you. Your walls are ever before me. The love of God is like the love of a mother. You can never forget. This is the perfect love, this of God. We're loved in this way from Him. If all of our loves on earth crumble, and there was nothing left but dust, there's always, for all of us, the ardent, unique, and faithful love of God. In the hunger for love that we all feel, let's not search for something that doesn't exist. It's, on the other hand, an invitation to know God who is the Father. The conversion of Saint Augustine, for example, went through this. The young and brilliant speaker sought simply among the creatures something that no creature could give him, until one day he had the courage to raise his gaze, and on that day he knew God. The expression in heaven doesn't want to express a distance, but a radical diversity, another dimension. So don't be afraid. None of us are ever alone. God is always at hand. All you have to do is say, Our Father who art in heaven. So don't be afraid. We're never alone. If also if there's a disadventure and your Father on earth has forgotten you, and you are angry with Him, the fundamental experience of the Christian faith is not negated to you, that of knowing that you are a most loved child of God, and that there's nothing in life that can put out His love, His passionate love for you. Thank you. So now we hear the summary of the Catechesis and a greeting from a French-speaking official. Going to give a summary of the Holy Father's words from the Catechesis that was just given. Sitting here with Matthew Bunson in our Vatican studios. Matthew, just sort of in a nutshell, how would you summarize this Catechesis that the Holy Father's given?
Well, the first is God is love. If we want to the very heart of what he's saying is that to all of us, and he cited Augustine as an example. You and I were just talking about him a little while ago. We are searching, we are longing for love, but we're also longing to be loved. And it is in God that we find love in the fullest dimension imaginable. And it is in that love of God that we find ourselves, but also we find the purpose for our lives.
It's this series of catecheses really is beautiful, because the Holy Father is just inviting us to know who we are, to know that we're children of God no matter what happens. God is always waiting for us. He's repeated that over and over in these Wednesday general audiences. And he said it again today, is God is there and He's always loving. He's passionately in love with each one of us, even if our father or mother has negated us, has denied us here on earth, and if we have our own personal problems within the families, we have to go beyond. We can never, our parents, just as we ourselves can never give the love to the extent that a person would want. There's only one being that can do that.
Well, this is especially significant. It's important, and here's where Francis's pastoral skill, I think, is so revealed in a general audience like this. We live in an age in which the image of the family is terribly marred, in which so many young people do not have an idea, the ideal of a mother and a father, the nuclear family, under threat in so many different ways. That then has a marring effect as well on our understanding, our image of God in our lives, of what it is to have parents, of what it is to have that family. And Francis is showing us a way forward in the midst of this tragedy of finding that image of God in our own lives. But there's a phrase, too, that he used, eternamente mendicanti di amore. We are eternally beggars of love. And that goes to one of the key words of Francis's pontificate, too, and that is humility, that we turn to God in that humility.
Beautiful message. So here the Holy Father has greeted the French-speaking pilgrims and invited them on the occasion of their pilgrimage to Rome to remake the experience of this immense paternal love that God has for us, to be able to help others to discover it as well.
Most Holy Father, the English visitors and pilgrims present today wish to express to you their sentiments of respect and esteem, and to assure you of their prayers for your ministry as the successor of Peter. At the end of the audience, we will sing together the Our Father in Latin. The words are found on the back of your ticket. The Holy Father will then impart his apostolic blessing, which he willingly extends to the members of your families at home. His Holiness also intends to bless any religious articles you may have brought for this purpose, and in a special way, his blessing goes to all children and young people, the elderly and sick, and those recently married. The following is a summary of the Holy Father's words this morning. Dear brothers and sisters, in our continuing catechesis on the Our Father, we now consider the first step of Christian prayer, which is to enter into the mystery of God's paternity. To understand how God is Father, we naturally think of our own parents. Yet this image needs to be purified, for none of our parents is perfect, and neither are we. When we speak of God as Father, then, we must go beyond a merely earthly image, for God's love is that of our Father who is in heaven. Yet we only experience this total divine love in this life in an imperfect way, for our human love is wounded. Indeed, the fragility of human love is captured well by the words of the prophet Hosea. Your love is like a morning cloud, like the dew that goes early away. God's love, on the other hand, is a perfect kind of love. He loves us in a way that none on earth ever can. In the hunger for God's love that we all feel, we are not seeking something non-existent, but instead responding to the invitation to know God as Father. So we should not be afraid, for nothing can extinguish his passionate love for us.
Saluto I pellegrini di lingua inglese presenti all'udienza odierna, specialmente quelli provenienti da Inghilterra, Scozia, Irlanda, Canada e Stati Uniti d'America. Su tutti voi e sulle vostre famiglie invoco la gioia e la pace del Signore. Dio vi benedica.
So the Holy Father giving a greeting to English-speaking pilgrims there. We'll hear the translation.
I greet the English-speaking pilgrims and visitors taking part in today's audience, especially those from England, Scotland, Ireland, Canada, and the United States of America. Upon all of you and your families, I invoke the Lord's blessings of joy and peace. God bless you.
So every week we have the possibility of hearing this catechesis in the different languages, the summaries that are given by officials. The next is German, and it gives us the chance to greet our viewers and listeners who are following in by way of Facebook. Actually, why don't we listen into this beautiful choir here. So that could have been St. Anthony's High School Choir from South Huntington, New York, who were on the official guest list. There were 260 of them present. That looked like it could have been them, Matthew.
That looks promising that that's who they are.
They were waving American flags also. So we'll listen into the German language catechesis here as well. We've got people listening in from Germany by way of our German counterparts.
Allen Anwesenden den apostolischen Segen erteilen. Gern schließt er darin ihre Angehörigen ein, besonders die Kranken, die Kinder und die älteren Menschen. Zugleich segnet er auch die Rosenkränze und die übrigen Andachtsgegenstände, die Sie dafür mitgebracht haben. Es folgt nun eine Zusammenfassung der Katechese des Heiligen Vaters in deutscher Sprache. Anschließend wird Papst Franziskus einen kurzen Gruß auf Italienisch an die deutschsprachigen Pilger richten. Liebe Brüder und Schwestern, in der Reihe der Katechesen über das Vaterunser wollen wir heute nachdenken, was es heißt, dass Gott Vater im Himmel ist. Er ist nicht ein gewöhnlicher Vater. Den Vätern hier auf dieser Erde geht es wie allen Menschen. Ihre menschlichen Beziehungen haben bei allem guten Willen ihre Grenzen. Wir Menschen tun uns zuweilen schwer, unsere Liebe wachzuhalten. Wir unterliegen den Versuchungen des Egoismus, der Macht und des Habenwollens. Gottes Liebe ist radikal anders, hat eine andere Dimension. Seine völlige Liebe können wir in diesem Leben nur in unvollkommener Weise kosten. Wir sind vor Gottes Liebe arme Bettler. Und doch brauchen wir nie an der Treue seiner Liebe zu zweifeln. Wir sind stets die Adressaten seiner Liebe. Selbst Wenn wir die Erfahrung gemacht haben, dass es unsere Eltern zuweilen an Liebe fehlen ließen, dürfen wir fest vertrauen, es gibt einen Gott im Himmel, der uns so wie keiner auf dieser Erde liebt und lieben wird. Wir alle sind Gottes geliebte Kinder und es gibt nichts im Leben, was diese Leidenschaft für uns auszulöschen vermag.
Un cordiale benvenuto ai pellegrini di lingua tedesca. Essere figli del Padre dei Cieli significa amare il prossimo e stare vicini a quelli che sono soli in difficoltà. Per questa testimonianza della misericordia divina, il Signore doni a voi e alle vostre famiglie il suo paraclito e la sua grazia.
Der Heilige Vater hat sich mit folgenden Worten an die Anwesenden gewandt. Ein herzliches Willkommen allen Pilgern und Besuchern deutscher Sprache. Kinder des Vaters im Himmel zu sein bedeutet, den Nächsten zu lieben und denen nahe zu sein, die allein und in Not sind. Um dieses Zeugnis der göttlichen Barmherzigkeit geben zu können, schenke der Herr euch und euren Familien seinen Beistand und seine Gnade.
So there was the German language greeting and summary of the Catechesis from the Pope on God the Father in the Our Father prayer. We like to allow for this broadcast to really be an experience of the universality of the Church and to listen in to these different languages. But people should also know that this all goes out on our social media, on Facebook, also Periscope by way of Twitter, and also YouTube. So if people would like to check it out online, they can go ahead and do that. And also make comments online that we can see here in the studios, that we can comment on, and we can engage with the public. So if anyone out there would like to just send us a message, you can get on Facebook, EWTN Vatican in particular, and just write us directly.
We'd love to hear from you. We really do.
And what you might be asking yourself as well, why do we listen to the entire German catechesis or to the Spanish or to others? It's because we have different language services that are taking this live feed to allow for people all over the world to experience it. So our EWTN German offices, CNA Deutsch, also listen to it in Spanish. There's so many people that really follow this.
De toda oración cristiana es el de introducirnos en el misterio de la paternidad de Dios. Aunque hayamos tenido unos buenos padres, nuestra experiencia familiar no es suficiente para entender esta paternidad, porque sabemos que todo lo humano, también el amor, es imperfecto, ya que está sujeto al egoísmo personal y a los límites propios de nuestra condición de hombres y mujeres. Todos somos mendicantes de amor y experimentamos un gran deseo de amar y ser amados, pero al mismo tiempo encontramos que nuestro amor humano es débil e inconstante. Es una promesa difícil de mantener, un intento que se seca rápido y se evapora, como una nube mañanera, como el rocío que al alba desaparece, dice el profeta Oseas. En cambio, el amor de Dios, nuestro Padre que está en los cielos, es diferente. Es un amor cercano, total, fiel, destinado a todos y a cada uno. Y aunque todos nuestros afectos terrenos se esfumaran, incluso el amor de nuestros padres, el amor de Dios permanece siempre. Es un amor del que no podemos dudar, porque la experiencia fundamental del cristiano es la certeza de saber que somos sus hijos amados. Saludo cordialmente a los peregrinos de lengua española venidos de España y Latinoamérica. En particular, a los seminaristas de la diócesis de Getafe, acompañados por su obispo, Monseñor Ginés García Beltrán. y que celebran 25 años de la creación de ese centro de formación. Bienvenidos. Que el Señor nos conceda la gracia de no tener miedo y de saber que no estamos solos, porque no hay nada en esta vida que pueda apartarnos de su amor de Padre. Que Dios los bendiga a todos. Muchas gracias.
So the Holy Father greeting the Spanish language pilgrims in the audience, especially a group from the Diocese of Getafe, Spain, led by their bishop, Inés García Beltrán, celebrating 25 years since the creation of that Center for Formation. Holy Father also asking that the Lord concede us the grace to not be scared and to know that we're not alone, because there's nothing in this life that can keep us away from the love of the Father. Now we listen into the Portuguese language catechesis and give a shout out to all those following along by way of ASI Digital, our Portuguese language service.
Cujo texto se encontra nas costas do bilhete de entrada. Depois, o Santo Padre concederá a todos os presentes a bênção apostólica, extensiva aos seus familiares, especialmente aos doentes e às crianças. Abençoará igualmente todas as lembranças e objetos religiosos que os peregrinos tenham consigo. Leio agora um resumo da catequese que o Papa Francisco acaba de propor. Quando chamamos Pai a Deus, temos em mente a figura do nosso Pai terreno, mas este, o nosso Pai terreno, não era perfeito. Como nós próprios, aliás, também não seremos pais ou pastores perfeitos. As nossas relações de amor estão sempre marcadas pelos nossos limites e o nosso egoísmo, inclinadas pelo desejo de domínio ou de manipulação do outro. Somos mendigos que corremos o risco de nunca encontrar na própria estrada aquele tesouro que procuramos desde o primeiro dia da vida, o amor. Por isso, ao aplicar a Deus a imagem que temos do nosso Pai, precisamos de a afinar, purificar. O amor de Deus é o do Pai que está nos céus, como Jesus nos convida a rezar. Pai nosso que estás nos céus. O nosso amor é frágil e intermitente, mas existe outro amor, o amor do Pai que está nos céus. É o amor total, que nesta vida saboreamos apenas de forma imperfeita. A sede de amor que todos sentimos é o convite a conhecer a Deus, que é Pai. Por exemplo, a conversão de Santo Agostinho passou por aqui. Aquele jovem e brilhante orador procurava, simplesmente entre as criaturas, algo que nenhuma criatura lhe podia dar, até ao dia em que teve a coragem de levantar o olhar. Nesse dia, conheceu Deus. A expressão que estais nos céus não significa distância, mas uma diversidade radical, outra dimensão. Por isso, meus irmãos e minhas irmãs, não temais. Nenhum de nós está sozinho. Se por infeliz sorte teu pai terreno se tivesse esquecido de ti e por isso estivesses zangado com ele, quero que saibas que não te é negada a experiência fundamental da fé cristã, a de saber que és filho muito amado de Deus e que nada na vida pode apagar este amor dele por ti. Agora, o Santo Padre saúda em italiano os peregrinos da língua portuguesa.
Con grande affetto saluto i pellegrini di lingua portoghese, augurando a voi tutti.
Holy Father says it's with great affection that he greets the Portuguese language pilgrims, wishing you all to be able to always realize how much life is truly a marvelous gift. May Our Lady keep watch over your path and help you to be signs of trust and hope among your brothers. On all of you and your families, may the blessing of God descend.
De que possais vós todos dar-vos sempre conta do dom maravilhoso que é a vida. Vele sobre o vosso caminho a Virgem Maria e vos ajude a ser sinal de confiança e esperança no meio dos vossos irmãos. Sobre vós e vossas famílias desça a bênção de Deus.
أيها الأب الأقدس، يسر المؤمنون والأشخاص الناطقون باللغة العربية التعبير لكم عن
So now we move on to the Arabic language catechesis. And just a summary of the catechesis, if we could turn to you again, Matthew, just to ask, just briefly to summarize what the Holy Father has said to the pilgrims in all of these different languages now.
Well, as we see with these little distillations, we had, I think it's Father Paul de Laterante, who spoke for the English language groups. He had an interesting summary of the fact that in the Our Father we are turning to the image of the Father, and it's for those of us who are searching for love, we find in that Father, in our Father, all that we are searching for. The English language catechesis itself was summarized, as they always do, with a couple of images that we naturally turn to reflection on our parents. Now that is, as the Holy Father noted very often, a deformed image. We don't have perfect parents. As he says, he is also not a perfect pastor. And yet, in our gazing upon God's fatherhood, what he calls the mystery of God's paternity, we are turning to God the Father. We think of our own parents, as he says. But when we speak of God as Father, we have to go beyond. This is purely earthly image. For God's love, as he writes, is that of our Father who is in heaven. It is the perfection of that image, and it is, as the Holy Father also notes, mystery. Yet we only experience this divine love in this life in an imperfect way. Echoing back to St. Paul, of course, for our human love is wounded. As the Holy Father used that image again of we are beggars for love. But then he notes too the fragility of human love. It is captured by the words of the prophet Hosea, that your love is like a morning cloud, like the dew that goes early away. It is ephemeral. It is passing. It is of this earth. God's love, however, is perfect. It is a perfect kind of love in exactly the same way that he is the perfect Father. He is the perfect parent. He loves us in a way that no one on earth has ever been able to love. And it is in that hunger for God's love that we feel. We are not seeking something that doesn't exist, that's some sort of a fantasy, but really is a responding to that invitation to know God as what? As our Father. So then there's that recourse to the image as well of being not afraid, for nothing can extinguish God's love for us.
The restless heart of man only finds rest in the love of God. The Holy Father saying, repeating another message here from St. Augustine.
St. Augustine, our hearts are restless, Lord, until they rest in you. And I think it is safe to say, Alan, that this is an age of restlessness. So
there's this official, this is the second secretary to the Holy Father, Monsignor Ioannis Gaid from Egypt, who's giving the Arab language summary and greeting, and now translating the words of the Holy Father to greet all pilgrims. And then we'll hear the Polish language catechesis and greeting quick. We take the opportunity to greet our EWTN Polska colleagues who are broadcasting this by way of their media. At this point, it was just started last October, and at this point, it's going live on YouTube and also on Facebook. If anyone would like to join that, we'll listen into the Polish language edition now.
Pragną złożyć Waszej świątobliwości wyrazy czci i oddania. Zapewniają też o swojej modlitwie we wszystkich intencjach związanych z posługą następcy Piotra. Na zakończenie audiencji zaśpiewamy wspólnie modlitwę Ojcze Nasz po łacinie. Jej tekst znajduje się na odwrocie kart wstępu. Następnie Ojciec Święty udzieli swojego apostolskiego błogosławieństwa wszystkim nam tu obecnym, obejmując nim również nasze rodziny, a w nich szczególnie osoby chore i dotknięte cierpieniem, dzieci i młodzież. Pobłogosławi też różańce i inne dewocjonalia, jakie pielgrzymi przynieśli ze sobą. Kontynuujemy katechezy na temat Ojcze Nasz. Pierwszym krokiem każdej modlitwy chrześcijańskiej jest wejście w tajemnicę ojcostwa Boga. Mówiąc, że Bóg jest naszym Ojcem, myślimy o postaciach naszych rodziców, ale zawsze musimy to odniesienie udoskonalić, oczyścić. Jak czytamy w katechizmie Kościoła katolickiego, oczyszczenie serca dotyczy powstałych w naszej historii osobistej i kulturowej wyobrażeń ojca lub matki, które wpływają na naszą relację do Boga. Dlatego też, gdy mówimy o Bogu jako o Ojcu, myśląc o obrazie naszych rodziców, którzy nas kochają, jednocześnie musimy iść dalej. Miłość Boga Ojca, który jest w niebie, to miłość całkowita, jakiej my w tym życiu zasmakowujemy jedynie niedoskonale. Istnieje wyrażenie proroka Ozeasza, które bezlitośnie ukazuje wrodzoną słabość naszej miłości. Wasza miłość jest jak poranny obłok, jak rosa, która wcześnie znika. Oto czym jest często nasza miłość. Obietnicą, której trudno dotrzymać, usiłowaniem, które wkrótce wysycha i wyparowuje, jak rosa o poranku. Inna jest miłość Ojca, który jest w niebie. Nawet jeśli by nasz ojciec i matka nie kochali nas, to jest Bóg w niebie, który nas kocha tak, jak nikt inny. Prorok Izajasz mówi, czy może kobieta zapomnieć o swym niemowlęciu, czy może nie miłować dziecka swego łona, lecz gdyby nawet ona zapomniała, ja nie zapomnę o Tobie. Oto wyryłem Cię na moich dłoniach. Miłość Boga Ojca jest wierna i pełna.
Saluto cordialmente I pellegrini polacchi.
Holy Father, greeting Polish pilgrims. It says, dear brothers and sisters, never forget that we are most loved children of God, and that there's nothing that can extinguish His passionate love for us. The prayer of the Our Father who is in heaven. May the prayer of the Our Father who is in heaven fill us with every sentiment of the absence of love, of life, of every one of us. The Pope basically saying that may the love of the Father fill us, fill every absence in our hearts.
I że nie ma nic takiego, co mogłoby ugasić Jego namiętną miłość do nas. Modlitwa do naszego Ojca, który jest w niebie, niech wypełni wszelkie poczucie braku miłości w życiu każdego i każdej z was. Niech Bóg wam błogosławi.
So now, Matthew, we move on to the Italian greetings to conclude this week's general audience. There are many Italian pilgrims, of course, who just have the Pope here in their backyard, and that's always the biggest group in the general audience, even though the Spanish speakers are often louder.
Louder, but not necessarily as numerous as the Italians. I'm just scanning through this list of the attendees from all parts of Rome. And we talked earlier, here we have also the couples of the Sposi Novelli.
They'll have the opportunity to greet the Holy Father, couple by couple. They'll visit them 2 by 2. After greeting the disabled and sick, hear the Italian official saying that each of the Holy Father sends out a particular thought to all of the young people and those who are sick. Holy Father is saying that he greets all of the pilgrims of the Italian language. So he's happy to greet the sisters of Mary Ausiliatrice, Maria Ausiliatrice, and a group of parishes, in particular that of Saint Archangel of Romagna. So more small groups that are visiting here that the Pope is greeting one by one.
Saluto il Comitato Regionale Lazio della Federazione Italiana Gioco Calcio Lega Nazionale Dilettanti.
Greeting even a group of soccer players.
Del personale della Questura di Campobasso.
People from a government office in the city of Campobasso.
Le famiglie del reparto oncoematologia pediatrica dell'ospedale Salesi di Ancona.
Families from a pediatric unit dedicated to blood cancer at the hospital of the Salesi of Ancona. And students in the anti-corruption master's degree program at Rome's Tor Vergata University.
Una curiosità storica, ma tocca a voi. Io sono dal sud.
Pope saying, I'm from the south, from near the Antarctic. Did you know that the first chaplain that went down to Antarctica was one of your compatriots, someone that was born in Campobasso? Compliments for this honor. The Pope just saying that he had a curiosity to share with them. A particular thought I send out to the young people, the elderly, the sick, and to newlyweds. Next Friday we'll celebrate the feast of the chair of St. Peter the Apostle. Pray for me and for my ministry, and also for Pope Benedict, so that I may always confirm our brothers in the faith, always and everywhere.
Which itself is a quote from Paul VI.
Here we have the Our Father prayer to finish this catechesis in the Latin language, if you'd like to pray along.
Domino Hoviscum, sit nomen Domini benedictum, aiutorium nostrum in nomine Domini. Benedicat vos, omnipotens Deus, Pater, et Filius, et Spiritus Sanctus.
So the Holy Father wrapping up this weekly general audience with his apostolic blessing that extends to everyone present in the hall, but also everyone listening and watching this general audience from afar.
And there are quite a few people listening from afar.
And we thank you for that. The people who are following along from all parts of the earth by way of our Facebook analytics, we can know a little bit about who you are, especially if you comment and send messages to us. We know that a lot of people have been watching this from the Philippines, Pakistan, Ghana, Lebanon, the United States, Pennsylvania, Arizona, California, and also Western Australia. And we thank you for all of those who commented, also asking for prayers. Josephine Gill, also Ana Moreno, Mireille El Casas Jarjur, watching from Lebanon, Breda Whalen, also Akwekwa Intel, I'm not sure if that's the last name, the Facebook handle, but thank you to each and every one of you for following along, and thank you also to Matthew Bunson for being here in studio with me.
A privilege, as always. Anytime I'm in Rome, I'm always delighted to help out with these.
It's wonderful for us and wonderful for our viewers to get your perspective and your deep knowledge also of the Catholic Church to benefit from that, so thank you. I want to also say thank you to Massimiliano Valenti, who's here in the studio with us, bringing the broadcast to everyone internationally. Also Michael Masney, who helps out with the technical aspects from Irondale, Alabama, our headquarters. Also Mark Jefferson and Veronica Arndt. And Benjamin Crockett, who brings this transmission to you by way of social media